as soon as we open IICS, so everybody know. So these are the options that we'll be having. So these are the services which I can see. So we should go to data integration. We should go to explore. So this everybody know. So then I'm going to the project. So this is the project. So under this project, I have created a folder called training. So in this training, so in the last session, I have explained about how do we create one-to-one mapping. Like how do we read the data and load the data into the target. Okay. So in IICS, see all we are going to do is we are going to read the data from source, load the data into the target. Okay. So I see there are other people told me that so they could not understand properly the previous session. Okay. I'm not sure why, but yeah, once again I'm telling. So every mapping IICS code is like this only. So in real time also we are going to do the same thing, and we are going to create mapping task flow. That's it. So we are not going to create anything else. Okay. Apart from this, we are not going to do anything. All we are going to do is this one only. Okay. So when we create a mapping, so in the mapping where we will be having a source, we'll be having a target. Okay. We'll be having a source, we'll be having a target. So all we should understand also is what is the source, what's the target, what's the source table, what's the target table. And this source table is present in which schema or which database. This target table is present in which schema or which database. And do we have the database details? Well, if you have the database details, do you have the connections? So this is the hierarchy. First, we should know what is source, what is target, what is the source database details, what is the target database connection details. Okay, and then do we have IICS connections in IICS connections created or not? If IICS connections are created, we can directly make use of those connections. If not, we have to create the connections. So how do we create the connections? I have shown in the last session. Create the connection, test the connection. Once the test connection is successful, then save it, and then we can use it in our regular mappings when we are going to create. Okay, so let me configure this connection. Okay, so there are in the previous session I just explained only about what is source, how do we read the data from source, and load the data into the target. And there are several properties also there. So today let us see what are the other properties that we can make use of it. We create a table. Okay, so this is my employee sigma source table, which I have created in system schema. So let me see, select start from employees. So I'm getting data. Okay, now let me create another table here only in the same schema. So if I'm going to keep 1 equal to 2, what is going to happen? When I execute this,
only column will be created. Only structure of the table will be created.
Yes, only structure of the table will be created. So in the same system schema, I'm creating one more table with the structure as employees underscore target B, because I don't want any data into this table. So let's start from employees underscore target. So now I don't have any data here. So now in the same mapping, or let me create a new mapping. Create mapping, create. I'm creating a new mapping again. Okay. So whenever we are going to create any new mapping, so we will be having by default source and target will be coming up, because so this is the basic activity that we are going to do with IICS CDA data integration. Okay. So now this is the source. We have to configure the source details. In the source, what is my source table that I should select? So first of all, I need to see whether the connection is relevant connection where this database is present in the IICS or not. We have to verify in the connections tab. So once I have the connection here, and then let me select a single object. Click on the select. Employees. So I'm selecting the source table as employee. As soon as you select it, fields will be automatically populated. Fields will be automatically populated, and then if you go to the query options, we have an options of filter and sorter. So if at all we wanted to restrict to load the data with only specific condition, I don't want to read all the data from the source. So business has given a certain requirement to read the data from this table with this condition. When we know the condition, so if you wanted to apply any condition, we have to use this filter property. Now click on this configure. Select in the filter condition where we have three options: not parameterized, completely parameterized, and advanced. So not parameterized is basically we can create a plain filter conditions. That means if at all we have very plain values, okay, from this object, let's say from this department ID is equals to, let's say 90. If at all we have this plain condition, we can use this not parameterized option. Okay, if at all we wanted to use multiple conditions with different operators. Okay, here we have only these options. Apart from these options, if at all we wanted to write any explicit filter conditions, we have to go with advanced. Okay. If you go to advanced, so now from the left hand side where we'll be having this columns. Which column I wanted to add department ID equal to 90. So we can write a condition like this also. If at all we wanted to add another fields, okay, then we will go with and we can use and or operators. Okay, but if you are going to give not parameterized, it is going to take only and operator. It's not going to take or operators. So always it is advisable to go with the advanced option. Go to the advanced option, write your explicit condition, and then click on Okay. Now I configure to read the data only for department ID equal to 90. Then go to target. In the connection, just select the connection and object. Employees underscore target is my target table. Once we select the target table, so I'm enabling this truncate table option because I wanted each and every execution of the mapping, the table should get truncate and reload. So that's why I'm enabling this truncate option, because in the previous session I've shown you how without enabling this option how it is going to work. If I enable this option, how it is going to work. And then go to field mapping. Now we have to map the appropriate fields. So if at all we have the same field names, we can go to automatic. It will automatically map it. So in real time, we'll be using some expressions, some filters, some other transformations. When we use other transformations for the different logics, so this automatic option is not advisable. So go to manual and connect one by one, or otherwise go to auto map, click on smart map. This smart map will automatically map it, like if the name is relevant. Let's say we have first name. Okay, if at all we have instead of first name, if you are going to have O underscore first name, if it is an output code. Okay, or if we have a hire date, so this hire date is O underscore hire date or V underscore hire date. Some expression fields that we are having also, the smart map will automatically identify. But when we use automatic, it will look for exact name of the mapping. And when we use auto map, when we use auto map, it will look for exact name. Okay, and you will not be able to manually map it again. You will not be able to manually map it. So that is the reason always we should go with manual and smart map. So it will automatically map the fields, and we can map the missing fields. If at all any field which the smart map is not able to identify, then we can have an option to map it. Okay. Now we have given field mapping also, and we need to make sure whether the fields are correctly mapped or not. So this is very, very important. Then click on save it. So then click somewhere here, give the mapping name. M underscore cell K 18 underscore source. Let's say I'm creating source options. Okay, so this mapping I'm creating to show the source options. Okay, this is now we can see this mapping is created. Source options mapping is created. Now let me create a mapping task. So naming standard for mapping task is empty underscore mapping name. Select the proper runtime environment. So now I'm selecting this SLK and select the mapping to which this mapping task to be created. Put it in the search bar so that you will be getting here. Because in real time, if you see, right, there will be thousands of mappings. So it will be very difficult to identify where our mapping is present. So that's why we can use the search bar, keep our mapping name so that we are able to see only that mapping. And then click on next and save. For now, let us not worry about any of the options here. Okay, now I have created a mapping task. So then I can run this mapping task. If we run it, we can see in the My Jobs. If we click on this My Jobs, where we have an option. We should refresh it. Or we can click on the mapping task. Okay, so that we'll be able to see the source rows, source success rows, affected rows, errors, anything here. If we require, we can refresh. We have an option to refresh here. You can keep refresh here. Okay, so we read 3 rows from source, loaded 3 rows into the target table, because we can show that we can see the session log. We can download the session log. We can see in the session log is a place where step by step process of execution will be added here. Okay, so all the information related to the execution, like the execution of this particular mapping task, step by step it will be available here. Okay, and we can see here, because without queries the database is not going to work. We can see to read the data from source we will be having a query. To insert the data also we will be having a query. The integration service which is going to prepare the individual queries, and then it is going to use these individual queries to the database, and then the database activities are going to happen. So here if you see, this is our target table. This is present in system schema. So the insert query is prepared. So whatever the values which are coming from source, so that for every record this will be placed into an insert statement and it will hit the database. And then if you see here, this is the source query. See from system dot employees, where employees dot department ID equal to 90. So because if you see here in the mapping, we just have given only the filter condition under source. So in the query option, we just mentioned here department ID equal to 90. Okay, but the query is prepared with this filter condition. Okay, integration service will identify what is the filter condition is mentioned here. Okay, now let me check in the target table. See where department ID equal to 90 records only loaded, because whatever the data which is matching to this condition, only that data will be get loaded.
So, Bhaskar, suppose I have a source table where all the department is stored, department ID 10, 20, 30, 40, up to 90. So, in target table, so suppose I want to distribute all this as per department ID. So, in this way, we have to make separate mapping and mapping task for this, right?
No, we can create. Yeah, there are multiple options actually. Okay, so you can create multiple flows in the same mapping. Okay, you can take another source, another target, and you can connect it. Okay, if at all you wanted to load with single mapping, what you can do is you can take one more source, one more target, you just connect it. Okay, and in this source and in this target, give the other condition. Okay, so like that you can create n number of source and target, n number of flows that you can create, and then you will be having an option here, flow run order. Okay, so you have to set which one should execute first and which one should execute next.
Okay, so you have what you have done, you drag the source, right? Just drag the source
from here in the design. So here if you see, right, so we have all the transformations here. We will just drag and drop.
Okay, and second in right side, this option how you come?
These 3 dots. We have 3 dots here. When you click on these 3 dots, okay, if at all you wanted to create mapping task with like without going to new and all, you can directly create a mapping task here. Okay, save, run, flow run order. If at all we have multiple options here in the mapping, we can select the flow run order. Okay, so these things anyway I'll explain later. Okay, so this is the first stage. Okay, so just try to understand what is source, what is target, and how this each and every option is working. Okay, next is sorting. Okay, so we can sort the data also. So not parameterized. So we can click on this plus symbol from employees object. I wanted based on the department ID, I wanted to sort the data. Okay, so here this is default, it is selected as ascending order. Okay, so usually this is with ascending only, it is going to work. Okay, so for this in real time mappings, where we'll be having option to select ascending or descending. Okay, here we are getting only option of ascending. We are going to get the data in ascending order only. Okay, now we wanted to get the data in ascending order, we can use sort option. Okay, now let me remove this filter condition. Okay, I just removed the filter condition. I just added only the sorting option. Now save it and run it. So we can even run the mapping also. So we don't need to have mapping task mandatory, but it is not advisable to run direct mappings. But when we wanted to test something, okay, then we can just run the mapping also. This is one of the advantage in IICS Informatica Cloud. This is the option where without mapping task we can execute the mappings. Wow. 107 records read from source, 107 records loaded into the target table. See, earlier I had only 3 records. Now when I execute, I can see the data. Now 107 records, if you see the department ID sorting like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80, 90, 100. Data is completely came in the sorting order. So null, it does not have any value, because of that null record will be the last record. Going to consider.
One
Yeah.
more doubt here, like we can add multiple sort option now we have
Yes.
added only for department ID. If we want, we can add for first name, last name, email,
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
everything. Okay.
We can add anything. As per our requirements, we will have to. Okay, so the next option is distinct option. Okay, if at all source is having duplicate data, but we wanted to read only the unique data, so then we can select this distinct option. Okay, so before that, let me show the log of this mapping. How the how the queries will be prepared. Can I open this mapping? Like you can see the difference here. So when I add the filter condition, I have the query with where condition. Now, so from table, order by class is added, because so in SQL we have learned about order by class, like how do we sort the data, either ascending or descending order. We can use order by class. So order by class is prepared. So whatever the property that we are going to select, accordingly the integration service is going to prepare the query, and that query will be issued to the database. And based on the query, the database is going to return back the results to the Informatica. Okay, so this is how we can add a filter condition. This is how we can add order by. If at all we wanted to add both also we can add it.
Bhaskar, suppose if we have an option called descending in our system, okay, so at last the query will be mentioned as employee,
DSC.
the department ID, space
DES.
descending, DES.
DSE.
Hmm.
DSC. Okay. Now, if at all we have the duplicate data, the entire record set is a duplicate record set, then we can go with select distinct option. So this select distinct option is going to be used to remove the or to eliminate the duplicate data when we are going to read from source. Okay, because this is one of the interview question. Okay, what is the property that you can use it to eliminate the duplicate data from source? Then we should tell Yeah, there is a property called select distinct option under query options. So this, when we enable this property, so then the source data will be get. So from source we are going to get unique data. Okay, this is about distinct. Now the source type till now we have seen only single object. So we do have query option. We do have query option. So when we have a query option, so these are all won't count because we are going to write explicit query here. Okay, let's say I'm going to write an explicit query. We can write an explicit query here. Which I'm going to put the filter condition as 80. Okay, now validate it. So we have to validate. We can write an explicit query here because in real time, right? So we will not be having plain tables. So sometimes we'll be having, sometimes we won't be having. When we don't have plain table, we have a certain requirement. Okay, where we have to apply certain logics to read the data. So then we will have to use query option. We have to write the explicit query. We will have to prepare the query and make sure whatever the query that we prepared is working fine and it is giving the result. And we have to use that query here in the query option. So then we will have to validate it. So then we should see if the custom query is valid, because if at all there are any syntactical errors, so this is going to throw the error. So that we need to fix that error and we have to place the query here.
So Bhaskar, this is one type of source query, right? Source qualifier
Yes.
query. Okay.
Yeah, it is a source qualifier query.
Okay.
So if you don't give the query here, integration service will prepare the query like this based on the conditions. If you don't specify any condition, the simple select query will be prepared by the integration service. That query will be issued to the database. If you don't prepare the query, integration service will prepare the query. If we prepare the explicit query here, so integration service won't prepare any query. Okay, so it will just directly use the same query and issue to the database. Okay, if there is no syntactical errors, then whatever the result will be coming from the query, then that will be issued to the IICS again. Okay, so that's why we need to make sure there should not be any syntactical errors in the queries. So even the query, sometimes what is going to happen, query when we execute in the database, it will be working perfectly. But when we keep it here and when we validate, it will not work properly. Because IICS and Informatica will be having 99.9% syntaxes are same only. Okay, there are very few syntaxes which it is going to throw errors. Okay, so just to avoid those kind of things, we will have to validate first and make sure the query is valid. Okay, and also sometimes what is going to happen when we copy paste, we will be missing something when we select the queries. Okay, so in order to avoid that also, we will have to validate. Once the query is validated, let's say I put department number equal to 80. Click on OK. So even the fields also will be coming accordingly. So whatever the fields that are there in the source query, only those fields will be coming up. Okay, then I'm saving it. Now I'm running it. So there are 34 records loaded into the database. Okay, because when I can just show the log also. Let me download the log and let me show the log also, like what is the query is being used. Yeah, if you see here, department ID equal to 80. So whatever the query that I've used, the same query is there in the log also, because if you specify any query, the integration service won't prepare any query. It will just use only the query what we specified. If at all there is any error also, we can download the log and we can see the log for the errors, like what exactly is the error which is coming up. And then we'll have to fix that. Again, we will have to re-execute the mappings. So now for department number 80, there are how many records loaded? 4 records loaded in the database, because I have enabled truncate table option. Because of that, every time the data will be keep truncating and reloading. So there are 34 records loaded. Now let me put filter in the query also. Let me execute this query. How many records are coming? 34 records. Okay, these are the different properties of source, and there is one more property. There is one more property in the source type is multiple objects. Okay, multiple objects is nothing but if at all we wanted to use multiple objects in the source. Let's say, so we have only the department ID here. So what I'm going to do, so I will just add alter table employees underscore tgt and department name varchar 2 of 20. So I have added one column here as the department name. Now from our source table, employees table, do we have the department name? No, we just have only the department ID. Now what we should do? We have to get the department name from which table? Department table. So we need to identify. Okay, so we have a department name in the target table. So what is the mapping? From which table this department name is coming up? So we will be getting that in the requirement document. So from the requirement document, if they say that it is present in the department table. Let me create a department table. I've created a department table. Now let me insert few values here. Then HR 20 sales. Okay, let's say I have department table with 2 records. Now in my target table, employees underscore target, I have last field as department name. Now I wanted to populate this department name. So from my source table, employees table, I don't have any department name field. I just have only the department ID. Now what I should do? The requirement is telling that. So department name is coming from department table. Department name is coming from department table. Okay. So now what we should do? We have to establish a join employees table with department table based on the department ID to get the department name. So how are we going to do that is, there are 2 options for that. Option 1 is we can use multiple objects. We can use multiple objects. Click on these 3 dots, add a source object. What is the main source? What is the first source is? Employees. Employees is the first source. And then in the drop down here, add the related objects. So in the go to custom relationships, related object. If at all there is any existing relationships, meaning if at all there is any primary key foreign key relationship is established, we can directly get it. If we don't have any primary key foreign key relationships, then we will have to select it explicitly. Select the department table. Now the joining columns. So primary object is employees table, department ID with type of join, inner join, left join, right join. These are the three types. Inner join or inner join, then department ID from the dependent object, that is department table. Then click on add. So this condition will be add employees.department equal to department.department. So this condition department.department ID. So this condition is added now. Since we are using an inner join, it is going to give only the matching data. So wherever the department IDs are matching in the department table, only the data will be coming here. Save it. Now from the department table, we are getting...
Bhaskar, I have a question. So suppose testing point of view, because I am working as a tester. So when this IICS development activity is completed, and we will get the mapping document. So obviously, this mapping, whatever this joining condition, inner join, left outer join used in this IICS, the developer will give, right?
No, we have to go with the requirement document. The mapping document we will have to go. We should not go with the developer.
Okay. In mapping document, it is explicitly written that inner join or left outer join will be used in that. Okay.
Yes. So if it is not mentioned also, we have to ask them, boss, I wanted clear details in the mapping document so that which join that I have to establish here, left join, right join, inner join. So mention the requirement properly. So I'll follow the requirement document. See, always it is not even advisable for a tester to go with the developer, like not to ask any questions. If at all we have any small doubts, that we can ask. Other than that, we should not go with the developers.
Yes.
Either we can go with the dev lead, like we'll be having the knowledge, okay, or we have to ask the person who given them requirement. Because even though you are a tester, like you will be our test lead, you will be also part of all the discussions, right? So the requirement discussions, you will also be part of it. When you are part of it, the requirement discussions, like you have to thoroughly understand. If at all you are not able to understand anything, you should be able to ask them and get the questions, get the answers.
Okay.
Now if you go to the fields, since I have added the department table, so fields from department table also came. So now here the origin we will get to know. So this table is coming from, this column is coming from which table, this column is coming from which table. So since there is a join between these two, employees.department, the origin is showing that employees, department. Now go to the target, go to the field mapping. So here we don't have it because I have altered the database, but the new column will not automatically appear here. What we should do, we have to refresh it. Okay, we have to refresh it. Here all fields synchronize. So when we are going to refresh it, then the new fields that we have added in the database will be coming up. If you don't refresh it, those fields will not come. Now go to field mapping. Now the new field came up. So here we have the department name. Just drag and drop the department and save it. Now run it. Go to my jobs. Loaded with 0. Let me go here, loaded with 0. Now what we should do? Download the session log. And see what is the queries prepared by the integration service. here, this is the source SQL query. Now we will have to take up this query. Let me put it in the notepad itself. Now we can execute this query. See, if you see here, the join conditions are properly added. Okay, from employees table, department table. So department.department ID equal to employees.department ID. Okay, so this query when I execute, so this is returning 3 rows. So with HR sales. Okay, but when we see here, it's not showing anything. Sometimes IICS will work like this only. You don't need to worry. Now directly check the data in the target table. So it is not loaded anything. So the reason is I have inserted the data, but I did not committed it. I have inserted the data, I did not committed it. Because of that, the IICS, when the query is issued to the database, it is not able to identify those because which that I have added in the department table. Now I just committed it. So here if you see row inserted, but there is no commit. Now let me restart.
Bhaskar, sorry to disturb. Like, can you explain that the query alone at the last point, the join point?
This
The join
query, right?
condition. Yes, the join condition has been made now. Okay, until from system.employee is fine, and it is taking from system.department as well. Okay.
Okay, so I am joining basically employees with the department table based on the department ID. Because this is a query prepared by integration service. Because we did not add this query.
Correct.
Okay. So when we go to source here, we just in the source what I did was I just selected multiple objects, and this is the source object. This table is this table. I am joining with this table based on this condition. So I am just giving what exactly that I wanted, like what is my requirement. Okay. Now this integration service is understanding and it is prepared query like this.
Okay, Bhaskar. Is it possible? Can you ping me this query like over the chat?
Yeah. Now I just executed right the second time. See now 3 rows came up. Because once after I committed, the Informatica could be able to identify those records. Now let me go to let's start target. Now we are getting 3 records. See, in real time, it is not advisable to go with the multiple objects. Okay, it will be having too much confusion. Okay, it is not advisable to go with the multiple objects. Either we can go with the single object or query option. Why I have explained multiple objects is because how it is going to work is also that you wanted to understand. Okay, so something because in interviews people are going to use. So without using SQL query, how are you going to do a join? Okay, so then you should tell this property like there is a multiple objects property. With these multiple objects, we can establish a join. So instead, we can write a SQL query here. We can frame our SQL query here in the database. We can explicitly select columns from employees table E ES alias name, inner join, department table, D on E dot department ID equal to D dot department ID. We can write this explicit condition, and then we need to give the alias name, which column should come from which table. E dot employee ID, E dot first name, E dot last name, E dot email, E dot phone number. So we have to explicitly mention which table, which column should come. And the department name should come from D table. Okay, so department name I have to get from department table. Rest all the columns that I wanted to get it from employees table. So I have prefixed the schema name. Now I can execute this query. So this query I can use it in my source query option. Just validate it. If at all you wanted to see the data directly here also, you can preview the data. Just click on the preview data. You can see the data also here. So this is required for the debugging. Because let's say queries, let's say the mapping is failing and we are not able to identify at which place it is failing. So whether the source is giving the data or not, if at all we wanted to identify that, then at least we can preview the data. If the data preview is coming up, then automatically data will be coming from the source when we execute the mapping. So then we need to think of the other place where the issue is happening. So preview is here. Click on OK. Now save it. Run it again. Again 3 rows succeeded. I'll go to system log. Because I wanted to show you the difference between when query is prepared by Informatica and one query that we have given. So this is the exact query what we have prepared. So this is the query which was prepared by Informatica. This is the query which we have prepared, placed in the source query. So the same query is being issued to the database, and this query is available in our source query option. Okay, so these are the different properties. The different properties that we can use IICS. Sorry, in the IICS source. And if you observe one thing here, in the mapping, I have given a query. Okay, so this query options are not fine. So this is how we are going to use the query option. I'm sorry. Any questions? How do we make use of what are the different source types that we can use it? And what are the different query options that we have, and how do we use those query options like filter and sorter are distinct? How do we make use of them? Any question here at the source side?
No, Bhaskar, for me it's clear. I'll work out.
Others? Anyone
Bhaskar,
having any?
I didn't
No,
get
Bhaskar.
the query, Bhaskar, from this chat.
Sorry?
You have pinged me the chat, query chat. No, I didn't get that. It is not visible to me.
Can you check now? You are able to see now.
Bhaskar. Yeah.
Okay. So the next upper source. So now we are going to learn some transformations. Okay. So there are other tasks, data synchronization task and data task. So these are all there. So but so in real time we are going to use very less. Okay. Usually we are going with all these transformations. So that I'm going to explain those synchronization tasks and the other task at the end. Okay. So now let us go with the transformations and let us go with the all traditional concepts that we are going to use regularly in real time. At the end, I'm going to explain the other parts. Okay. So the next concept is expression. See, in IICS, whoever wanted to work as an IICS developer, like all they will be having, they should know only there are some 7, 8 or 10 transformations are there. In between source and target, so we'll be having only 7 to 10 transformations, and for every requirement, combination of these transformations only that we are going to use it. Apart from that, we are not going to invent new things, or we are not going to discover new things here. We don't need to write any programming, we don't need to write anything here. So all you wanted to know is, well, whatever the transformations that we have, that 7 to 10 transformations, so what combination of transformations that we will have to use it in order to achieve this particular requirement is what we have to understand. Okay,